Tonight we're at the Wayne County Public Library, where historian Marty Cheddar of the Public Library will be presenting a program about baseball. Baseball is very important here in Wayne County. We've had several major players go into the sport from right here in Wayne County. Tonight we're going to see artifacts, we're going to hear people talking, we're going to just have a good old time talking about baseball, the American pastime.
Pretty remarkable. All right, the next item we have is I want to talk briefly about this Fremont it's a semi-pro uniform. Semi-pro refers to people that make a little bit extra money. This is really big here, really even I think through the 70s, possibly early 80s. Marion may know when these teams started pulling. But anyway, in the 40s, this particular uniform is from the Fremont. All these little communities had teams. In 1947, I came across some really fascinating articles. It was called the Wayne County Semi-Pro League, but it was big enough that it had included 4 counties. It was Johnson, Wayne, Lenoir, and Greene counties. And all these tiny little towns, tiny little Shine in Greene County, they passed through it, if you headed towards Pitt County, they had a team. So there's a ballpark, or a place where these teams played out in the field. And that's the kind of thing we want to connect. And that's how we connect to other communities as well, to find out document where these fields where they play. But this is a particular uniform from 1947. I have several of the pictures from this league that kind of documented. They're over one of these panels. What's neat is it has the names of these towns. So Pikeville, Salson, Baytown, all that. And I think it'd be really, I'd love to find more original photographs and scan them, and then eventually would like to interview some of these folks. But what's interesting about the Fremont team, in 1947, they had a really great team. In fact, Jack Peacock pointed out that Johnny Peacock's younger brother was on this team. Is pictured here. This particular uniform belonged to a gentleman named Glenn Hooks, who was a lifelong farmer. He was donated, or it's on temporary loan. There's a nice little museum in Fremont Heritage Museum. So I saw it there and I asked if I could borrow it. Because all these tiny little towns had teams. But what's significant, though, in 1949, a group after the Major League Baseball season ended, a group of barnstormers, Major League players, they could make extra money by orchestrating playing in little towns. So you could have all your local community team play this group of Major League players. These are guys you followed in the paper, guys that you listened on the radio to. And ironically, in the 1949 team, the group that came through here was a bunch of mostly guys from North and South Carolina, and Ray Scarborough was the pitcher. And Fremont, it was close. It was they both had 8 hits. And the major leaguers won by 1 run, so it's 4-3. But anyway, this uniform was used in that game, and this is just to really represent and this is another aspect too how big baseball was in Wayne County. So in 1947, there were probably 20 semi-pro teams in the county. There were high school teams. There was a minor league team here. I mean, it was a big deal. And then you had these major league players that they're from the county that were. At least at that time, there was Clyde and Ray that were playing Major League Baseball. So that's kind of that connection. And let's see. Okay, George Altman. The only item I have for George at the moment, I have been in touch with him, but just the way he lives in the St. Louis area now. We have several of his family kin with us here. But this is pretty neat. This is, not all the players have this, but this is a kid's glove. It's Wilson. You have people familiar with Wilson, but this is the George Altman model. He went to Dillard High School. He finished in 1951, which was the traditional African-American school here. He went off to college, actually had a basketball scholarship to Tennessee State in Nashville. At the time that school did not have a baseball team, but near the end of his junior senior year they did. But there was someone at school that had a connection with the Negro Leagues. So he got a tryout, or ended up getting on played on the 1955 Kansas City Monarchs, which is the end of the Negro Leagues. And he actually played for Buck O'Neil. Buck O'Neil, if any of you have seen the Ken Burns baseball documentary, Buck O'Neil is profiled in that. He's interviewed a lot in that series, and he played for him. Anyway, then he did play in the military a little bit. And then he signed a minor league or a professional contract in 1956. And then his major league debut was in 1959, and he played 9 years professional baseball, mostly with the Cubs. He did play 1 year in St. Louis and 1 year with the Mets. And then he continued his career and played 8 years in Japan through 1974, 75. But anyway, in his early years, he had a really very powerful hitter. He made the National League All-Star team in 1961 and 62. In fact, he made 3 All-Star teams in those 2 years. Anyone know why? Made 2 All-Star teams, huh?
Oh, they had 2 All-Star games.
From 1959 to 1962, they actually had 2 All-Star games in the season. So that's correct. He made it twice, I think, in 61 and then once in 1962. And then 1 year he led the league in triples. He's the first player to hit 2 home runs in the same game off a Hall of Fame pitcher, Sandy Koufax. That was August 4th, 1961. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so I'm going to talk about Ray Scarborough. Ray Scarborough actually grew up in he actually grew up in Montgomery County, which is in the western part of the state. He went to, he grew up in Mount Gilead, finished high school in 1934. He ended up going to Wake Forest College, where he played baseball. And he actually was, there were some scouts attempted to sign him professionally during school, but he really wanted to finish college, which is what he did. And he actually had a minor injury too. And so he ended up getting a job as a science teacher in Mount Tabor, which is where he met his wife, who was from Mount Olive, and which is where he lived. So during his entire professional playing career, and when he retired, he lived in Mount Olive. And during the off season, back in the era when a lot of these guys played, they had to have second jobs. So he actually worked for Mount Olive Pickle. And there's a lot of great caricatures. There's a lot of great stuff in the Boston paper when he played. He was a really, really good pitcher. So when they would profile him, he was always the pickle man. And so he's always a pickle barrel and stuff like that. There's some fun takeoffs. But I mean, he really helped open up Mount Olive Pickle to the Northeast markets and stuff like that. So that's pretty interesting, and that ties into agriculture. But specifically with Ray Scarborough, he played 10 years in Major League Baseball. A few kind of neat odds and ends that people don't realize. When he was in college at Wake Forest, there was a game that Wake Forest traditionally, it was called the Easter game. There was that, I believe Monday after Easter, I believe is how it worked. It was from 1899 to about 1956, and NC State traditionally would play Wake Forest. And Ray Scarborough pitched in the 1939 series, and he had he only let up two hits. He had 2 hits shut out. So that's one thing. And then when Guy Smith Stadium in Greenville, which still stands, that was part of the old Coastal Plain League, that was opened up. When they opened up that 1939, Duke and Wake Forest had a game, an exhibition game, when they opened up the stadium, and Ray Scarborough opened up for Wake Forest when they opened up Guy Smith Stadium. And let's see, two really neat things that he did. He was in 1948 and 49. He pitched. The first 7 years he played for the Washington Senators, which was a perennial doormat. I mean, they weren't a great team, but he was a really good pitcher. And he was a really difficult. Ted Williams had a really difficult time hitting him. And so twice he pretty much on his own practically knocked the Red Sox out of the pennant. And there's this really good book. There's some books up here that I have associated with these items that and they're tagged where they reference local players, these guys. So I just wanted to read it because David Haberstand is one of my favorite authors. He did some really fantastic baseball books, and he really justified. He does a really great job explaining Ray Scarborough's role. He said, Ray Scarborough was a very good Washington pitcher, perhaps their best, and also Boston's nemesis. This is from a book, called Summer of '49. He had beaten Boston 3 times in the '48 season, including a critical game at the end of the season. Scarborough was a right-handed pitcher, and he was nothing if not smart and crafty. Not only did he give the Boston right-handers a difficult time, but he was poisoned to their best left-handed hitter, Ted Williams. Scarborough could decoy Williams better than any other pitcher in the league. It was not just a matter of his selection of pitches, it was his motion as well. He would show fastball and then at the last minute go to his curve. 40 years later, Williams paid Scarborough the ultimate accolade. He said that he probably chased more balls out of the strike zone with Ray Scarborough than with any other pitcher in the American League. And that's a Hall of Fame hitter. One game in the series, he struck him out 3 times in a row. So that's pretty something. But what ended up happening is he knocked the Boston Red Sox had to win 1 or 2 games to clinch the pennant, and they lost a real key game to Ray Scarborough. So, and then a few years later, and actually that was in 48, 49, and 51, Ted Williams, because of Ted Williams' urging, actually got him traded to Boston. So here's his hat that he wore with Boston. So his daughter's here with us, Beverly Black-Wilner, who let us borrow this. So, and at the end, what we'll do is at the end you can come up, take a look, talk to the family, ask any questions. Okay, and then at the end of 52 season, in August 22nd of 1952, he was actually traded to the New York Yankees to help get the Yankees into the World Series. And he was traded August 22nd, and he won 5 games, lost 1. And he pitched in Game 1 of the 1952 World Series. This is the hat he wore. And he actually was supposed to start the game, but that was kind of at the last minute. Allie Reynolds was chosen to pitch in the end.
I don't know if it was Al Reynolds right here, fielder.
Well, anyway, he was selected to. He went in the 8th inning, and he got the side out. The Yankees lost the game but won the World Series. Pee Wee Reese hit a home run off him. Duke Snyder lined out. Billy Cox lined out, and he struck out Joe Black, the catcher or the pitcher. So that's Ray Scarborough. We got Bill Yelverton, who's a family friend of Rob Wooten, who Rob went to CB Aycock, Charles Aycock, and he currently plays Major League Baseball with the Milwaukee Brewers. And he's going to talk about a lot for us.
Yeah, I've kind of watched Rob grow up, good friends with the family, but picked up one of these magazines. I don't know if any of y'all picked up one that's got some outside, and it's the official book from the Baseball Hall of Fame. On the cover, the name of it's Memories and Dreams, and that's what all of this is about. These players making memories and living out their dream. Rob just started out. He played Little League ball in Fremont, started pitching when he was 7 years old. Played at Aycock, went to Carolina, played in several college World Series at Carolina, and he holds the record right now for the most appearances in the College World Series by a pitcher. Got drafted by the Brewers, went out to Montana, and just like Clyde and Marion, he got real discouraged because it was real different out in Montana. It's away from his family, and he came close to giving it up. They moved him to West Virginia, to Charleston, to the single A team, and that was a little bit better. I went to see him play there, and I'll tell you a little story about that in a minute. But after West Virginia, he went down to A-ball in Florida. He made the all-star team in A-ball real successful. He had a couple of setbacks and surgeries, but I guess when I think about him, it's perseverance. He has fought, and he's had determination, motivation to continue on, and he's finally made it. Got called up last year to the Brewers. Started off in Nashville this year, but he's back with the Brewers now. John, Jack, you said John had a love for the game. There's no bigger person with a love of the game than Rob. He's a fierce competitor. That's what Marty said, about Marion. He's a fierce competitor. one similarity they had to Ray Scarborough. Last week at the function, they played a audio clip when Ray's daughter was born, when they had an interview with him. Last year, Rob's daughter was born, his first year in the Major League. So that was a real big event, you know, in his life. And one other the story that I was going to tell you about West Virginia, I was sitting there watching the game and Rob was pitching, and I keep on hearing a chant in the crowd. They go, Wooten. And I couldn't figure out, you know, right what was going on, and one guy was kind of leading the chant. So after the game, I asked him about it, and they said every time Rob throws a strike, the fans at the stadium would go, Wooten. He said that he played minor league ball, you know, pony league.